Hello and welcome to Rights and Recourse, a program that informs and educates you, the viewer, about your rights and legal recourse. I'm your host, Dumile Matez. The festive season is upon us, but for the road users, a number of things can turn that festive mood into misery, particularly if you get on the wrong side of the law. With law enforcement agents all out in full force this holiday season, it may be best to do the right thing by complying. Not only that, know your rights and responsibilities as a road user. But first, let us have a look at this insert.
As the festive season dawns upon us, many people, mainly migrant workers and holiday makers, make use of our national roads, toll gates and borders to go on vacation or to go home to visit family members. While heavy traffic flows and traffic congestions becomes the norm during this time, many passengers and holiday makers will sadly not reach their destinations safely due to driver fatigue, negligence, drunken driving and speeding. The Department of Transport launched a driving campaign years ago called Arrive Alive. Their overall objective is to educate road users on the importance of road courtesy and following the traffic laws, thus reducing serious road fatalities.
It is unacceptable. Even one person dying on the road is unacceptable because we are in control. It is a human being that is driving a vehicle. The vehicle is not driving itself. Yeah. And we've got laws, we've got regulations, we've got guidelines and principles on how people should behave. You get a license when you have been trained to drive, and that license is not blanket. It is a license for you to drive. It allows you to drive on the roads for this particular type of vehicle. Yeah. And one thing that we have observed is the recklessness, the total disregard of the rules, the total disregard of the limitations that the vehicle can actually be able to do.
I think every vehicle owner has a responsibility to make sure that before he gets onto the road that his vehicle is roadworthy.
You should be very well refreshed. You should be energetic. You shouldn't be tired or anything if you're going to do a long distance. And you know, like me over here, non-alcoholic beverages as well.
People that don't stop at robots at all, they're going over the red robot. That's the biggest thing. And the people who's driving with the cell phone.
While law enforcement agencies promise to take tough action and impose stiff sentences against those who continue to break the law, the question on every driver's mind is, what am I right on the road? Mbali, Madikwa, Right and Recourse.
Well, that is why we have dedicated today's program on your obligations, the law and your rights. And to help me do that, I'm joined in the studio by Advocate Makhosini Msibi, Chief Executive Officer of the Road Traffic Management Corporation, Mr. Dembovsky, National Chairman of the Justice Project, South Africa, and from Pretoria studio, we're joined by Mr. Thabo Tsholetsane, Chief Operations Officer of the Road Traffic Infringement Agency. Ladies and ladies, good afternoon. Sorry, my goodness me. Did I say ladies? Yes, gentlemen, good afternoon. Welcome to Rights and Recourse.
Good afternoon, Mr. Good afternoon, as well as the viewers back home.
My very first question is, are we a nation of reckless drivers disregarding all traffic laws and traffic ordinances and even road users?
Well, Dumile, the question that South Africa has good citizens. Not everybody in South Africa is a bad person. However, we have the cancerous disease in South Africa called, in terms of our roads, reckless usage of the roads. But it's all a matter of attitude and perception. You have some of the good road users that abide by the law, who are patient, who are considerate, and who at all times will do anything to avoid an accident. However, you have those in South Africa who has made it their business not to obey the rules of the law, who have made it their business to even speed at all material times. And remember, the road is the space that all of us fight for. We all use the roads. If we use the road, therefore, there should be an issue of compromise. There should be an issue of consideration. They should be an issue of embracing.
Mr. Tsholetsane in Pretoria, obviously many people are saying the laws are there to be broken, and it is up to those who have to see to it that those people are fined and taken to task about breaking these laws. What are we doing about it?
Yes, Dumile, you remember, as you correctly said, that there are rights that motorists have, but there is also obligations of motorists. When you use the road, you must also make sure that you respect the rights of others on the roads. So what we are doing is we are trying to make sure that those who break the law must actually be brought to book. Through the RTO system, what we are doing is we give them options to either to pay or to make a representation or to pay in installments or to refer the matter to court so that the court can make a finding on who is right, who is wrong in terms of this. What we are trying to do is to make sure that those who break the law perpetually, at a certain instance, we must actually make sure that their licenses are suspended. And if they do this continuously, we'll have to take their license away. And that person must not be on our roads.
How easy is that, taking somebody's license away because they've been breaking the law all the time? Or probably you can also ask my earlier question, whether are we a nation of reckless drivers?
Well, yes, in terms of that question of nation of who's breaking the laws, what we have seen is that we start with the smallest things that people don't do on our roads by simply going over the yellow line and we say, no, that's nothing. Or a person is not wearing a safety belt and he says, that's a little thing. So if we allow those kind of things, people end up saying, all the road traffic laws, they will break and nothing will happen to them. Hence, we came to a point where we are saying, now we need to do something stringent, whereby people will realize that if they do continue breaking the laws, their license will be taken away. How easy is that? We are saying a license is not a right.
We'll get to that. We'll get to that. Let me just get Howard's view on these first two questions.
Right. Well, firstly, suspending a person's driving license is not a difficult thing at all. It is something that is done in other countries with great success. It acts as a very good deterrent, and I do feel that it's going to act as a deterrent for some road users in South Africa.
Somebody might turn around and say there are already 100,000 other people are driving without licenses.
And that was the point I was going to come to. Until such time as all traffic enforcement is physical, it's going to make no difference whatsoever. We can suspend everybody's driving licenses. But if we're going to have cops hiding away in bushes taking happy snaps and letting that person, and this is the scary part of this, a person is hammering it. They are driving way in excess of the speed limit. And what do? We take a photograph. We don't stop them from speeding. We don't stop them from endangering people. We don't pull them over and say, cool it, buddy, and give them an infringement notice and have the opportunity to check whether that person in fact has a legitimate driving license. And let me just add to that the vast majority of traffic officers in South Africa do not have access to e-notice at the roadside to check if your driving license is in fact genuine. It could be a complete forgery. And this is a problem that we're dealing with.
Between these two authorities, the RTMC and the RTIA, whose responsibility is this?
Okay. Dumile, perhaps I must preface that answer with a foundation. We need to lay the foundation so that South Africans should understand what does it mean to have a driver's license. To have a driver's license is not a right, it's a privilege. And that privilege, it's attached to that privilege, there are certain conditionalities that we must then comply with. And we are using this matter as if everybody has a right. And once you have a driver's license, you have a right to use the road no matter how you want to use it. When actually, you have a privilege, you have been afforded a privilege to use the roads, but within that privilege, certain conditions have been placed with that privilege. But let me get to the second question. You will recall when you went for the first time to apply for a driver's license, you went through a host of questions, and in those days we did not even write. We never had the K53. But you'll be asked a number of questions to check the ability, whether you can drive or not. And this is the ability that we must work on, and the suitability. Most of our drivers are not supposed to be on our roads.
But why are they on our roads, Thabo, Mr. Tsholetsane?
Yes, sir.
Why are these drivers on our roads?
Yes, that's the problem that we have in this country currently, that we don't actually have a system where these licenses can be cancelled or can be suspended. I think Howard made a point in terms of physical law enforcement. And in dealing with that matter, Advocate Msibi has got a very huge task of trying to bring in what we call the National Road Traffic Law Enforcement Code, whereby the performance of officers will be checked, and they must actually do a certain amount of physical law enforcement so that they can actually bring down these accidents on our road. If we are going to do that physical law enforcement, then we are going to deal with the question that Howard raised. It is true that if we're doing electronic law enforcement, we are not going to be able to fight this case on our roads. However, if we do, then we find these people and we'll take them off our roads. If he doesn't have a license, he must go straight to jail, because that's an offense. Even in terms of the RTO regulations, it is an offense. Currently, if you don't have a license, you find that you just receive a ticket of 750 and then you'll pay it, and then that's all. But in terms of the RTO system, that it will be an offense and you must be arrested for that.
We'll come back to the RTO system and also the National Road Enforcement Code. We'll come back to those two things. If you'd like to join us on today's discussion, please call us on 011 714 5497 or 5498, or tweet us at Recourse, or email us if you have anything you want to make us aware about, and Recourse at sabc.co.za. We'll be back after the break. Welcome back as we discuss the road traffic with the road traffic agencies as to what will happen this Easter week, this Christmas season. Mr. Tsholetsane spoke about the National Road Traffic Enforcement Code. What is that?
Okay. Before I come to the National Road Traffic Law Enforcement Code, I need to put this into perspective. The road is not only used by the motorist, it's also used by the pedestrians. It's also used by the passengers. So central to that aspect, it's an issue of road safety awareness. And road safety is the responsibility of everybody, be it a passenger, be it a child, be it a pedestrian, and be the driver. And until we do that in South Africa, that all of us are quite averse with the road safety and take the responsibility in our own hands. Because this is a life that is so precious that they're just given an opportunity once in their lifetime. If we can then have the the mindset changed in relation to assuming the responsibility in terms of road safety. We will then have dealt with 50% of our problems in the country. But let me then come to the code that we're talking about. The code is meant to regulate the law enforcers, the do's and the don'ts. But we are reactionary in that situation. We are only coming after the fact, after the consequences. But what is important, what do you do to be proactive in relation to that matter? The law enforcement aspect is a broader aspect. We need to deal with the capacity of the law enforcers. As we speak this afternoon, we had our law enforcers passing out of the training, which we call the upskilling training, that we talk about in terms of the 21st cadre. Now, what does the 21st cadre mean? It means that the traffic officers themselves must understand the Criminal Procedure Act. The traffic officers themselves must understand the criminal law. And this, it's a training that we have put together with UNISA, together with Tsholetsane, as well as the renowned advocates. There were 3 advocates that were giving this education to our own law enforcers. The question is why? You need to ensure that you are equal to the task. When we go to the courts of law, we're not taking as novice. We don't want to pay lip service to mediocrity. As we arrest you, we want to deal with the case on our own, toe-to-toe with the prosecutors, toe-to-toe with the magistrates. Because what has been lacking in South Africa, we have never set a precedent where a person will go to jail for reckless or negligent driving without having killed a person. Once you do that and ensure that you can be imprisoned for 12 months, you will be sending the message to the people out there. But equally, back to the code, within the fraternity itself, you also have the law enforcers that are not living to the ethics of the profession. And that's what the code will then do to regulate everybody and ensure that internally we can then begin to discipline and fire people. And indeed, what we are seeking to do, we need now to remove the bad apples from our calling. Right now, anybody equates the traffic officers with corruption. And this is a wrong situation. But what South Africans have also not tested, it takes 2 to tango. There's a corruptor and the corruptee. Until we arrest both of them and sentence them to jail in terms of the Corruption Act, we will then be sending the message. It starts with a small issue where you offer a traffic officer a 200 rand, 100 rand, and said, I've offended, please, my brother, just close your one eye. We are out there to deal with all those elements too. So you'll be seeing a totally different law enforcement on our roads this festive season.
I just want to finish something here with Howard. Howard, you spoke about physical enforcement. We've seen many traffic police being knocked over by cars and die.
Yes, indeed. The methodology of running in front of speeding motor vehicles is, to say the least, insane. The fact is, if you have a look at how traffic law enforcement is practiced in overseas countries, the traffic officers are in motor vehicles and they go and they pull a person over with a motor vehicle, not by running in front of a speeding bus that has defective brakes and getting killed. You know, I think that there's a serious need for us to change our methodologies. It's fine for you to step out in the shoulder lane and pull over a person who's driving in the shoulder on the N1 freeway every single day at Malabongwe, at Barry Herzog, etc., etc. Okay, that needs to start happening.
Let's take this call from Mohara from Midrand. Mohara, good afternoon and welcome to Rights and Recourse. Hello, Mohara.
Hi, Dumi.
Yes.
I've got a question for Mr. Msibi.
Yeah,
my first question is this. You'll find in one RTIA in court. He comes to court, the matter's on a court draw. After 2 weeks, we stop by the officers, you find that the name of that person who's supposed to appear in court is still on their system. It goes for months and months and months. I'm trying to check if their system and the court system are not connected to each other, because a lot of public members are being harassed by the officers that they have to go and appear in court or pay their fine. And while the person was at court on that particular day and the matter was not on the roll. Thank you.
Okay, well, I think you heard that question very clear. He has a very clear voice.
Mohora, the two issues. Once you have been served with Section 56 notice, it has a court date. And what it means if you have not paid on or before the court date, it therefore means that you will present yourself in court. And you don't leave the court until you have satisfied yourself that the matter was not on the roll and the matter has been withdrawn. Because you have the control in relation to Section 56 notice. And that control will forever be the charge sheet. It's basically the charge sheet. Until that charge sheet has been withdrawn by the prosecutor, the matter is not over. But the question is, do our court roll tally with the roll of the court? We have traffic officers that are responsible for the court roll on daily basis. They will be in court to deal with the summons that are before court. But yes, there sometimes happens that perhaps the date on the summons might not be the date of the court. Say it's on the Sunday. You're given a date on the Sunday. You present yourself to court and say, I have a Sunday summons. The prosecutor will naturally say the matter is withdrawn. Or the prosecutor will give you an indemnity form. Because if we have applied for the warrant of arrest, we have to arrest you. You'll only explain yourself in court. But once you have the indemnity, you'll then show to us that I've been at court, I've been given this indemnity. We'll then say unto you, let's appear in court on a particular day.
So Tsholetsane, we haven't forgotten you. I think, Howard, you wanted to say something. You wanted to add something.
Yes, I'd like to give people a word of warning. A Section 56 or a Section 54 summons, in terms of the Criminal Procedure Act, there are currently 3 jurisdictions where if you pay the admission of guilt fine, you will get a criminal record in terms of Section 57 of the Criminal Procedure Act. The Criminal Procedure Act applies throughout South Africa, but currently only the Ekurhuleni Metro Police Department, their operational area, are imposing criminal records if you pay the fine. The same goes with eThekwini, and the same goes with the whole province of Mpumalanga. Now, I believe
I think you quoted the Western Cape too.
No, the Western Cape does not do that. Okay, it's actually very interesting.
Let's take this call from Guyana. You must be phoning on a cell phone. Israel, good afternoon and welcome to Rights and Recourse.
Yes, how are you, sir?
Fine, thanks. How are you?
I'm fine. Yeah, I want to ask Mr. Msibi one question. One or two, actually. Yeah, my first question is, Mr. Msibi is working at RTMC. So why RTMC is not amalgamating all traffic officers in our republic? Because you will find traffic officers are placed under certain section in different departments in each and every province, and of which that system is ineffective. Those people, they are not resourced, they are not taken to training. So if maybe Mr. Msibi can clarify why is RTMC not amalgamating all traffic officers all over the Republic of South Africa to be under RTMC, so that those people, they can be resourced, they can be monitored, they can be trained. As he said, he trained people for different various skills. So that's my question. Thank you.
Thank you, Israel. Mr. Msibi, you heard that question loud and clear again. I think what Israel is referring to there is the level of training these officers receive from various provincial departments or from the various provincial authorities.
Oh, well, Dumile, in terms of the RTMC Act, which was passed in 1999, we are established solemnly to deal with the coordination, to deal with the capacitation, as well as the law enforcement. But within those parameters, we are dealing with the capacity building. So it might not be necessarily the fact that everybody should be under the wings of RTMC. But what is important is to capacitate everybody. Let me give this example, and the traffic officers in various provinces will attest to this. As the RTMC, during this current year, we have given each and every provincial administration about 40 million. Key to it was to deal with the issue of road safety and law enforcement. And coming back to the question that Howard has asked earlier, saying that the manner in which we are dealing with law enforcement in South Africa leaves much to be desired. Without letting the cat out of the bag for the road users, we have what you call ghost vehicles throughout all our roads now. Those vehicles are unmarked. They are inserted with a system that check your speed. They just follow you. At the slightest moment, you will see now the lights flashing, pulling you off the roads. We have more of those vehicles during this festive season in our roads. We're doing that precisely because we are monitoring the behavior of our road users. And for the communities out there and the citizens out there, watch the space. A number of you will end up in jail. While you're looking for a human being, there will be a car that is following you, unmarked, and dealing with all the law enforcement and the infringement.
Well, we'll come back to that. If when you come back, we'll start in Pretoria with Thabo Tsholetsane, and because it's been cold out there. If you'd like to join us, you can call us on 011 714 5497 or 5498 or tweet us at Recourse. We'll be back after the break. Welcome back to Rights and Recourse. So we're coming to you live from Johannesburg. Mr. Thabo Tsholetsane, apparently the RTIA seeks to protect the rights of the road users. In what way do you protect the rights of the road users? Probably you can tie that question up to any response you wanted to make to what Advocate Msibi was saying.
Yeah, let me start off with the question that was asked to Advocate Msibi, which he actually answered. But there's a fundamental issue that people should understand, that the RTMC, as Mr. Advocate said, it's coordinating. There's an issue about the Constitution, which gives provinces and local authorities rights in terms of law enforcement. So it is a bit difficult for Advocate Msibi to can take over. I think that's an issue that must be dealt with politically. The second issue that I would like to refer to is the issue surrounding criminal records where people pay their admission of guilt. Yes, it has been law. It's just that it was not being practiced. And through the ARTO Act, we are actually trying to eliminate that particular issue, which will actually end up giving everybody in South Africa who's a driver a criminal record. If that law can be followed up strictly, each and every one of us will be bearing a criminal record. So through the ARTO Act, we are actually taking this away and making it administrative so that the only people who will end up with criminal records must be those who have committed offenses, which are serious issues like overtaking in a blind race or drinking and driving or excessive speeding. Those are the offenses that we'd like people to go to jail for and have criminal records. These little ones that people call little ones of not wearing a seatbelt should not actually have a person to have a criminal record. So what we are trying to do as a road traffic infringement agency is to do exactly that, as well as to make sure that if enforcement is not carried out correctly, we are going to look into that and make sure that whatever infringement notice or penalty that was given to that person, we deal with that penalty. The person will do what we call a representation and will deal with that penalty. If it comes to a push, we must actually cancel it. That person will not be held responsible for it because the traffic officers did not do what they were supposed to do. That's where we're trying to balance the rights of the motorist as well as the law enforcers.
Thank you, Mr. Tsholetsane. Let's go to Banyana Mhlongo from KZN. Banyana, good afternoon and welcome to Rights and Recourse. Hello, Banyana.
Hello, sir, and I'm not Banyana. My name is Bafanyana. I'm sorry, just a wrong spelling. Bafanyana, yes, Mr. Thabo, yes.
We apologize, Mr. Mhlongo.
I greet you. Yes, I am from an organization called KwaZulu-Natal Transport Alliance. This organization, it normally deals with public transport vehicles. We are taxi operators, and our suggestion, especially to Mr. Mlifi and the Department of Transport, has been that is it not possible for the department to incorporate a road safety component while the driver is being trained to drive? Because what is being done when the driver is being trained to drive is only to train him how to drive, but not training him about the safetyness of the vehicle. Because we believe that road safety does not only start at the road, it starts at the home of the owner of the vehicle, where the owner of the vehicle has to inspect the vehicle and see whether the vehicle is in a good condition to take that journey. That's the first aspect. Secondly, Mr. Mlifi, we have a problem as taxi operators, especially in KwaZulu-Natal. We can't get operating licenses. And when there are these things of road safety or roadblocks, we end up running away from police. How can you assist us? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mhlongo. I think for your last question there, operating licenses is a provincial...
No answer.
Oh, you'll answer it. Oh, he said he's going to answer it, Mr. Mhlongo. Okay, there's another thing. He said incorporate the road safety aspect in the training of drivers when they are being trained. Somebody was complaining on some radio station saying South Africans do not regard pedestrian crossings as a safe place for pedestrians. Can you answer that too?
Okay. Dumile, in terms of the training that we're talking about, we are inculcating and integrating road safety into the driver training. We are running pilots currently in the Free State, in Limpopo, in Mpumalanga, as well as, to a greater extent, it is in the Eastern Cape. What we're now doing, we're training all the driving schools, both on the issue of the road safety as well as the vehicle testing, because these are the first people that gets into contact with the people that need driver's licenses. However, we've further participated and collaborated with the Department of Education, where we're now making it compulsory for the grade 11s and the grade 12s to acquire a learner's license and the driver's license before exiting from the school. But central to it, it's road safety. Here in Gauteng, next year, from grade 11, you'll then be getting assisted to acquire a driver's license. But it's not about the driver's license, it's about road safety. We admit there's a need to change K57 to ensure that K57 also takes into account, K53 I mean, to take into account the issue of the road safety, because that's what is paramount. Before you get into the vehicle, you must understand road safety, so as to implement in the vehicle as well as on our roads. The issue of the public licenses, we know that in South Africa we have a challenge in relation to the applications. But what is important for all the public operators, don't occupy the space if you don't have the necessary
operating license. We arrest, we impound, we pull off the vehicle. And we want to warn the public, because in the past, what we used to do, we'll give you a 2,000 ticket and allow the vehicle to continue. But now what we're doing, we impound the vehicle, give you the fine, and don't allow the vehicle to continue with its trip. And it's indeed, during this festive season, we have seen it. We are also, as the department as well as RTMC, priding ourselves in the inconvenience, because those that get inconvenience are the passengers. So we're also saying to the passengers, don't get to a public vehicle if it doesn't have the public license, the driver doesn't have the PDP, and the vehicle is not roadworthy. How do I know? How would I know? Do I have to ask for these things?
They're all in the window.
They're all in the window.
Check any vehicle. Any public vehicle will have a sticker on the license and designating that this has a roadworthy. But above that, there is a license that it's on the sticker that shows that this car operates between this route and the other route. Let me make an example that was very, very...
Let's wait for that example to come. There's a caller on the line, Phumzile Tafane. Oh, I thought Phumzile is on the line. Phumzile is not on the line yet. Okay, let me ask this question. How does the traffic offense, the traffic laws in this country, the traffic laws of this country dovetail into the Criminal Procedure Act?
Well, if I may explain that. The National Road Traffic Act, the National Land Transportation Act, etc., are simply the rules of the road, essentially, and the laws pertaining to motor vehicles. They have no administrative mechanism to them. Now, the Criminal Procedure Act is used throughout the whole of South Africa, except in the jurisdiction of the JMPD and the TMPD. Where the RTIA Act takes over. And it's actually quite sad that we have two different pieces of legislation administering traffic law, because it creates confusion. People tend to think that because the RTIA Act requires service by registered mail, the Criminal Procedure Act does too. It doesn't. The Criminal Procedure Act, all they have to do is issue that fine within 30 days and post it off to you by carrier pigeon. It makes absolutely no difference. It's not prescribed. Now, this is, I think, one of the biggest blunders that the Department of Transport has ever made, in having two different sets of legislation running at the same time, because you just further confuse people. The fact is that most drivers of motor vehicles don't know even a 100th of the National Road Traffic Act and regulations. They really don't. And it's very easy for them to fall foul of them. Our biggest problem, as Advocate Msibi said, is that the K53 system was brought in 1989 in South Africa. In the same year, it was scrapped in the UK. Since then, the UK has had 6 different standards change. Okay, we are in serious need to start teaching people hazard perception, taking public drivers and make sure that they actually are trained properly in defensive driving, and to start training these people in first aid as well. There are a number of different changes that need to be made, and it's a little bit disingenuous to turn around and keep on blaming the people on the road. You know that Sweden reduced its road fatality rate by 97% in 20 years. And they did so by drawing the line and saying, we are now going to hold the service providers accountable.
Well, Howard, let's hold on to your thoughts. Let us first go to a break. When we come back from a break, I want to touch with an issue that I've already touched on, the issue of the Criminal Procedure Act and what my rights are when I'm being stopped at the roadside by a traffic officer. We'll go to Pretoria for that, and Advocate Msibi will help us. If you'd like to join us, you can call us on 011 714 5497, but we'll be back after the break. Well, welcome back, and let's have a look and see what the Twitter community is saying to us about this subject. Justice Maluleka says, in terms of the RTIA Act, which is not implemented nationwide, discount is available for 32 days from the date the ticket was issued. We'll have that. And Pumzile Tafane says, both persons who pays the bribe and the one who accepts it must be arrested. I think Advocate Msibi did say that. And Shuping Mukhotu says, the condition of our roads, the potholes, the narrow lanes, the barricades, etc., also contribute to the road accident. But first, let's go to Pretoria. Thabo Tsholetsane, when I get stopped, we'll answer all of those questions. If you want to take some of those questions, you can try and answer them. But one of the questions I wanted to know was, I get stopped on the road by a traffic officer. What are my rights as a motorist?
Yes, when you're stopped by the traffic officer on the road, next to the road, the traffic officer has got to identify himself and ask you, tell you what he's there for, and to make sure that he gets your license, to look at your license, look at your vehicle details, and make sure that he checks the vehicle. Your rights as a motorist will be, the traffic officer must tell you what is wrong with the vehicle, if there's anything wrong, or with your license, and then tell you what is the offense or the contravention. And when he gives you a fine, he must tell you as well when is that fine payable and where should it be paid. Now let me go on to the question that was asked on Twitter, that the discount is 32 days after you receive the fine was issued. I think that there's a problem there where people think when it was issued. There's two sets of notices. There's one called RTO1s that you are given at the roadside by a traffic officer that you sign for. That one, 32 days after you have received it, your discount expires. The one that is posted to you, after you have received it, it doesn't matter when, but after you have received it, then the 32 days starts. It's not when it is issued. Remember, you don't know when it is issued. You'll only know when you find it in your post office that I was speeding at a certain point. So at that time when you receive it, then your 32 days starts, and your discount will expire 32 days after that.
Sorry to interrupt you. What happens if the post office is on strike?
Yes, we have a huge issue here with the post office. Yes, where we see that people do not receive these fines, and we are trying to make sure, you'll remember that we went to Parliament to make sure that we remove this registered mail, which Howard referred to earlier. In the criminal procedure, you do not have to send this thing by registered mail, but in the RTO we are saying registered mail. So we are saying there are certain things in the RTO that we should send through registered mail where it is an enforcement order. We want to make sure that you know about it, it will be registered mail, or where we are saying to you, your demerit points are at a certain level, must be registered. But those of fines and penalties, we can send it by email, we can send it by ordinary mail, and you make sure, as a motorist, in terms of the National Traffic Act, you must make sure that your address is correct, and if you move from your address 21 days, within 21 days, you must ensure that the authorities change your address. So people must be sent through ordinary mail so that we can even save money, because the current system is very expensive for authorities. And you'll remember that at some point, Johannesburg had to use ordinary mail, at which point people were saying we are not liable because they used ordinary mail, which is not the case. If you know that you have committed an infringement, you should, as a good citizen, say, I did commit that, and I must be held responsible for that.
Thank you very much, Thabo Tsholetsane. Let's go down to Fanyana. Fanyana has called us again. Fanyana, good afternoon. Welcome back. And what is your next question? Or was your question not answered satisfactorily? Hello, Fanyana.
Yes, it's Mafanyana again. No, I feel, Mr. Makenza, the advocate did not answer my question fully. Firstly, because I asked him whether can he assist us, because there are those vehicles that will be on the road without operating licenses. That's the truth. How can he then assist us so that those people who have vehicles that do not have operating licenses can comply with the law? Because when you go to these offices or to their offices, you are told it's closed. They can't take new applications. So what do you do if you have a vehicle, a new vehicle that does not have an operating license? Can you assist us on that?
Let us try to get that question answered, but I did hear Advocate Msibi saying operating licenses are the competency of the province.
Well, I think how would
maybe I can assist.
In terms of Schedule 5 of the Constitution, we have the concurrent responsibility with the provinces. But the provinces are the people that are responsible for issuing out the operating licenses. You will then submit an application. Yes, we know there's a backlog in terms of the applications that have been submitted. But also what needs to be understood, it's not a fact that once I've bought a vehicle, that vehicle must have an operating license. There are a number of issues that have been taken into account. The need of that service, the number of licenses that have been issued, and indeed the supporting documentation. So in KZN as well as in Gauteng, we are also dealing with the issue of fraudulent permits that have been issued. So at some point, there was a need that let's place a moratorium to clean the system up. But I know as a matter of fact, at this point in time, they are now operational. I will ask the caller to be very much patient. I know it's the festive season, yes. It's the time to make more money. However, but the authorities are now doing their best to deal with this.
Let me hear from Thabo. Thabo, if you can include this issue that I think is it should be done by law enforcement, is to also check the service book. Whether does this car go for service?
Yeah, maybe just to top up on what Advocate Msibi has just referred to. Dumile will remember that in this country there were a lot of taxi violence, and such things are caused by those vehicles that do not have operating licenses. So as law enforcement and government, we are saying, let's make sure that we deal with that, because it's a root cause of all the violence that we find in the taxi industry. Regarding what you are referring to now, is that law enforcers are not as yet trained to look at some of the things on the vehicles, especially large vehicles, as Howard did indicate earlier on. And we are saying, yes, we need to capacitate them, as Advocate has said, to make sure that they deal with a range of issues in terms of traffic laws, and also make sure that they know the vehicle, what kind of vehicles is on the road, what kind of issues they need to look at. If it's a truck, what are the issues that they need to look at? If it's a taxi, what are the issues that they need to look at? So we are sure that in the coming years, we'll have traffic officers who are empowered and make sure that they deal with these issues. Dumile, I need to mention that traffic law enforcement and traffic, the RTMC, and all the departments that deal with traffic laws, they are actually competing with other social issues. Hence, they do not have enough resources to can make sure that they capacitate the people as quick as possible and make sure that we are at the top end of these issues. Howard did indicate that. Yes.
With respect, traffic officers can be taken through to understand what are the things, what are the defects on a truck, by taking them through a service company that services these trucks.
Okay, Dumile, let's get into these issues, because it will be not correct to generalize the situation. You have various qualifications in relation to the law enforcement. You will have those law enforcers that are responsible for licensing. You'll have those law enforcers that have been trained on learner's licenses. You'll have those law enforcers that have been trained on vehicle roadworthiness. So we have various categories of our law enforcers. However, we are the first to admit that we don't have the necessary and equal number of the law enforcers that can deal with those matters. Because what we have seen in terms of the economic boom in South Africa, we have seen the freight industry growing in very huge numbers. And that's where the problem is. In terms of the freight, we are not telling the truth as South Africans. Those freight vehicles are not compliant. And we're dealing with issues.
Why don't you arrest them?
We are. There are vehicles that, even on the freight industries, that don't even set their tires in the testing stations at the DLTCs. However, they have the roadworthy certificates.
Well, we'll have to go to a break. When we come back, we'll deal with how do we then solve this problem around all of these ills we have come to inherit in South Africa around the road safety and motor vehicles that have defects that cannot be attended to by their owners. Please don't go away. Join us after the break. Welcome back to Rights and Recourse. Thank you for joining us. Let us go to Joe in Midrand. Joe, good afternoon and welcome to Rights and Recourse.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Mateza, for taking my call. The problem that we have in this country is corruption, especially in that traffic department. The Mateza, you will never believe me. There's a guy, he's driving a taxi at around here in Midrand. That guy, he's driving with a license of his deceased brother. His brother passed away, I think, 5 years back. Till today, this guy is using his late brother's license to drive the taxi. And then every time the traffic court stops him, they just ask for the license. They don't validate anything. Then the driver goes away. I don't know how do these guys work. And the other thing, Mr. Mateza, the last point that I... Sorry?
Yeah, go ahead, Joe, quickly.
Yes, Mr. Mateza.
Running out of time, quickly.
I can't hear you breaking.
Okay, Joe, we got your questions around the license, which is the most important thing. Gentlemen, this short time we have, Howard, you wanted to respond to something around the rights of motorists before when they are stopped by the traffic police are off on the road.
First thing to remember is there's no such thing as a spot fine that you pay at the side of the road. That's called chorcho. Okay. Second thing is there is no such thing as arrest for an outstanding traffic fine, whether it's under the Criminal Procedure Act or under the RTIA Act. Don't let them threaten you with that. If they say there's a warrant of arrest, it's because you've missed a court date. Then it is legal and you may ask to see that warrant of arrest. If they say they're going to arrest you if you don't cough up or if you don't give them a bit of chorcho, then you say to them, here's the police. Phone the police. Phone 0861 400 800. That's the RTMC's anti-corruption.
Let's have last word from Advocate Msibi. Advocate Msibi, you can probably answer some of the questions from Joe.
Well, let's touch on the issue of the rights that the drivers have on the road. Correctly, as Howard have said, first, the peace officer will then identify himself. You have the right to know, why am I being stopped and what is wrong with my vehicle, Do I have any outstanding fines? Do I have any warrant of arrest? And then comply. Those are the issues that you're supposed to deal with. But in terms of the corruption, we're just going to react on this issue. This is endemic in South Africa. It's not only law enforcers that are corrupt, because there must be a corruptor and a corruptee. And the public is corrupting our officials because they're the first to make an offer. And we are saying, let us be good citizens. Let us not sell our souls for a song.
Let me go to Thabo. Thabo, one of the other things I spoke to Advocate Msibi earlier was, shouldn't our traffic officers have cameras like they do in America today so that you can catch those who are corrupting them?
Yes, we believe that technology can assist a lot in terms of dealing with corruption. However, as I correctly indicated, that there are competing interests in terms of monies and resources in South Africa. However, we believe that through our own ingenious systems and processes, we can actually nip this thing in the bud. As Advocate Msibi has indicated, we as South Africans, it's an endemic.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your time. We've run out of time now. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for coming in. There's a lot of things we still need to talk about around this issue. We didn't speak about the places where people are speeding without being caught by the police. We haven't spoken about this. Probably next time, early next year, we need to have you back here in the studio and have this program again. This has been Rights and Recourse. This program is repeated at 10 tonight and 5 on Monday morning. From all of us in the studio, thank you to our guests and good afternoon.